Thank you very much for the kind introduction. I'm Takeuchi from Chiba University. Thank you also for inviting me to this Kyushu University International Symposium. Compared to the two presentations we heard, I will speak more briefly to lay the ground for a panel discussion. The theme here is the open access and research data services in Japan, the challenges that we have in Japan. And as we listen to the three speakers, we also focus on research data. So I will be touching upon open access as well. The reason why I focus on that is Japanese policy is trying to combine open access and research data. Sorry, I am not able to move ahead with the slides. Thank you. So in what way we are dealing with open access and disclosing research data, how should we understand this? Just briefly, you can look at this diagram. On top level, there is a layer that represents global policy actions. Open access of science, there is a recommendation on a global level. So that will be the top piece. This will be followed by national level policies and actions, and there will be inter-university policies and actions. And eventually at the bottom, we have policies taken at individual university level. So on the university level, each university have different mission. So research data must be managed. Open access will have to be dealt under the policy that suits the mission of each university. Having said that, each layer has association with other layer. It could be individual university, but this will be affected by global policy and national policy. We have to have vertical consistency. Having said that, today I want to talk about the national level policy and actions and what each university can do in accordance with the policy set by the national government. So in Japan, we have Integrated Innovation Strategy 2023, which actually describe the open access, immediate open access policy to be implemented in 2025. This has been already mentioned by the opening remarks. So basic policy has been laid to be able to start this immediate open access in 2025. This is a clear direction set forth by this national government policy. So as you can see, this is the details of basic policy. I hope you have already read the content. Let me skip this slide, but I want to focus on the basic policy for realizing immediate open access. There has been the methods mentioned in the policy for a long time have been involved with open access, and there is slight disagreement is what is written here. But in order to realize open access, there is this philosophy and specific policy or the methods. And I think these two concepts are confused in some way. In terms of disclosing research results, open access has not been emphasized in the past. We tend to focus on information sharing rather than disclosing research results. But I think this perspective has been slightly changed. So about academic papers, a scope is open access of peer-reviewed paper. This has become compulsory, and this spread many repercussions in different universities. So how are we going to achieve open access? How are we going to share and publicize research papers? We have green OA and gold way. It's not just a choice between these two. The gold is the third option to enhance the information sharing. So I just want to briefly touch on that. But in order to make this happen, this is what we are doing at our university. How can we reduce the burden on white researchers and at the same time visualize research results? This type of strategic thinking is required. So research data, when it comes to research data, what it's described in the basic policy is the evidence data, the supporting data of research. This is also included in the scope of immediate open access. Why this can be a problem? This is a major topic of my presentation today. Based on our experiences and also hearsay, just want to present two specific examples. First of all, this is a new policy set forth by the national government. This is a policy that encompasses diverse areas. As Jake mentioned earlier, NIH is presenting a policy. This will focus on medical area. But this immediate open access of supporting data, if this is compulsory, for example, if you compare medical area and other areas, there is I would say, a gap of 20 years in terms of data handling. The three speakers already mentioned how this data access, research data handling has been discussed over 20 years. So for long 20 years, medical area has dealt with research, data management, and other disciplines are lagging behind. So how to open the data, this has been learned in the medical discipline. NIH environment is easy to use. The environment has been provided. Why do researchers have to deposit their research papers in Japanese repository? That is a question posed by medical researchers. And there are other researchers who say, what do you mean by disclosing, publicizing research data set? So that is the reality. There are different levels of knowledge. It's very difficult to apply one single policy to different levels of researchers. So each university has its own planning. So this is the current situation. It is very important to understand what is the current status. So what becomes most difficult is to focus, target researchers. We tend to look at people who know a lot. We tend to talk a lot with those who have large amounts of information and knowledge. But if we only target these knowledgeable researchers, there will be a lot of other researchers who will be left behind. This, I think, is a major issue. So second issue that I like to raise here is we talk about research data service. Who is going to provide that service? Before asking that question, how can you come up with research data service policy with a plan? Many universities do have difficulty. We understand there is a need for discussion. In order for us to discuss research data policy, it took us whole 1 year to prepare that policy. Honestly speaking, nobody wants to take that responsibility. So we have library, information center, information promotion department. All of these different stakeholders need to collaborate. UMDSI, as Jake mentioned, is a good example of that collaboration. And Robin also mentioned earlier, work together is very important. Even though we work together, we have to clarify leadership. Who is going to take utmost responsibility? There will be exceptional example of Kyoto University. They set up Data Management Support Infrastructure Center. And Kyushu University, of course, is a model example. Over 2.5 years ago, Kyushu University has been handling this research data. But even though you set up a center, one single center that is, will it be able to provide all kinds of support that is necessary, encompassing whole research process? There is clear need for education. The stakeholders in university will be collaborating together to establish data management and support system. I am the head of the library. We have to consider what library can do. We need to identify what a university library can do. This is a diagram drawn by trustee Hikihara of Kyoto University. The very first version that I distributed, and this one, there is a slight difference because I was pointed out that the URL that I presented to you in the initial version was wrong. So if you look at this diagram, lower half of the diagram, this is about making research open, and this is done by library. And on top, you see Data Operation Support Platform Center or Academic Information Media Center. And so this top half will be dealt by these centers. You have to clear-cut role division within the university. Thirdly, Jake clearly talked about this. So maybe we don't have to think about this or ask this question. When we talk about data curation, of course, everyone talks about data curation. Each one of you has your own definition of data curation, and that definition differs from somebody else's definition. And this is something that I felt as I discussed with other stakeholders. So what do we mean when we say data curation? Each one of them has different ideas as to what they have to do. And this difference caused a lot of confusion in Japan. This is just one example. Some would say that data curation cannot be provided by a library. Why? Data curation is so close to the research itself. It requires deep knowledge of that discipline where research is conducted. On the other hand, if there is general definition of data curation, and these people would say, of course, data curation can be provided by libraries. So there is confrontation between these two parties. So obviously, it indicates the need of collaboration to deal with research data service. The basic concepts, the basic understanding need to be commonized for us to be able to make progress. This, I think, had been a major stumbling block in Japan. So these issues, how have we been able to overcome these issues? I think the hints are provided by three speakers. Many examples are presented by the three speakers. So that is one impression that I get from the aforementioned presentations. So let me summarize challenges that we have at Japanese universities. Open science is the international standard. So universities in Japan need to deal with this difference. Researchers overseas conducted research. Will they be able to bring back research results? Then you would be asking, would the university in Japan have research outcome? There is a clear policy set by the university. Many universities are discussing research data policy, and last year and this year, research data policy have been established by many universities. So this issue, hopefully, is the problem of the past. Having said that, whether that is open access or the discussion we had today, or research data disclosure or management, we are still behind the international level. At the international level, we are a whole cycle behind. So we need to keep up with the overall trend on a global level. That's also another major challenge. So we do have policy at many universities. Many universities are talking about how to prepare storage, how can we set up a platform. As I said, there must be intra-university collaboration in providing an environment that supports researchers, how each role would be clarified. So these three examples that I raised here are the areas where university library can deal with. So just roughly, I've been able to cover some of the issues that we have. I hope that this will lay a very good ground for the panel discussion later. Thank you.